So this is Dungeons 3. It's a dungeon sim game inspired by Dungeon Keeper, the original series that kind of created the genre. It isn't the third in the series. There's a previous two. This game is a huge improvement over the last one in some ways. The user interface, the graphics, user interface is nice. But I'll grab all your creatures with R2 down. It's a huge improvement. The dungeons itself seem to be a little arbitrary now. Exploring the underground, there's never anything to find except for more enemies to kill. In the older games, well, at least in Dungeon Keeper, the series inspired it, you could find hidden creatures that could join you, power up, stuff like that. You don't seem to really find anything like that in this game. But I'll go to the overworld though and attack the good guys who do come down, like they're doing right now, who come down to invade your dungeon is a huge plus. I wish some of the rooms in the game didn't feel so arbitrary though, like the brewery just seems to be an arbitrary block on progressing too quickly because your creatures tap out at level 4 unless you have the brewery, in which case they can go above that, but that's all the brewery does on default. If you improve the brewery, you can actually get it to where it heals the creatures too, which would have been my logical default function of that room. Really, my biggest critique of the game is the lack of creatures. There seems to only be 12 units in the entire game so far that I have even seen mention of. And then over that, you have some really bad humor, and it's not just a little bit of humor, it's actually so oversaturated it is almost oppressive to be part of. Although I'd say my biggest compliment of the game is really, I think the visuals are quite solid. I like the slightly toony look. They mix it in good with the nature of controlling a evil being, an overlord of hell and stuff like that. Although what you are entirely, they don't really make a distinction in the game. They jump back and forth using various terms. It does seem strange to me you can't get like spiders and the little dragons you can fight that you'll find down here occasionally. You cannot get them in your dungeon as a creature you can tame, apparently.
A whole world of evil surprises and insidious events.
Yeah, it just seems like they could have spent a little more time taking a little more inspiration from what originally inspired them and doing what they did right instead of trying to be a humorous game. And the fact that undead units continuously respawn, I get their logic, but really it just makes them insanely broken. Same with demon units in the game. They just, when they die, they go back to their lair. There's called a vortex. The undead is a cemetery. Was not an improvement today. That just made them better off than the horde creatures, your general evil creatures, who do die. You have to build them a hideout. They don't just respawn. So that's just a huge imbalance in their game on default by faction of creature you use. Although the undead are supposed to be inherently weaker, I have not actually seen that myself. I don't seem to have too much issue with the undead dying or anything. The demons seem to be a little weaker. All in all, it's a nice dungeon sim game. It really needed to be polished more. Maybe the people making it should have looked at the inspiration they cited a bit more. And really, there's a lot someone could take and do with this genre that really push it into a new area. Bring back more of the dungeon management. Creatures don't get attracted anymore by your dungeon layout. You have to buy them. That was one of the huge things that Dungeon Keeper, the series, inspired it, is how you build your dungeon would attract different creatures. How you build it here doesn't even matter. You can just strip mine the entire place and it's fine. It just seems like they're removing a little bit more of the micromanaging, which in my opinion for a sim game or dungeon management game is not what you would want to go with. That's my critique on Dungeons 3. It's inherently fun, but hugely flawed for a dungeon management sim.